Hello, hello, hello. I'm really glad you're here. Mm, I love a good glass of water. And as it turns out, your spine does too. And that's what we're talking about today is a healthy spine. I did do another yoga mini also about having a healthy back. And I specifically wanted to construct this with additional poses and other ways to come at it, including the fact that we're starting standing because not everybody is going to be comfortable getting up and down off the floor, depending on how extreme your back might be in terms of levels of discomfort. So, I'm going to be referring in our practice today to like a sensitive back. And a sensitive back may just mean that you're aware that you need to be cautious as you proceed. It might mean that you're actually already a little bit in pain and it's tweaky. In which case, I'm going to ask you to please be thoughtful about that. Perhaps lower intensity, smaller hold times, not going as far in range of motion. Everything I'm offering is I think pretty accessible. And as long as you're thoughtful, you should be able to get the benefit without doing any harm. And that is always our goal. Um, One of the things that we take for granted is that our spine is just there and it's just healthy unless we've had a massive injury. But hydration, in fact, is really key because it's what creates the cush in the spine, in those discs. It's what keeps them spongy and yummy and doing what they're supposed to do, keeping us upright, keeping us mobile and range of motion and so on. And so it's vital for the whole body, your organs and detoxifying and everything else, but also to the spine. And I know that's not something I've given a lot of thought to. So I'm planting that seed deeply, I hope, with you today. So if you haven't already grabbed a glass of water, maybe go do that. And then join me at the mat. We're going to be starting in mountain pose, which is our most basic foundation standing posture for yoga. And it kind of looks like you're not doing anything, but in fact, it's actually quite active. You're going to plant your feet about hip width apart, and that means the hip bones, not the outer flesh of the hips. Big toes straight ahead, plant and spread the other toes. So I'm hoping you're feeling a really nice foundation in the whole footbed, what we might call the four corners, the inner and outer of both the front of the foot and the heel. And from there, I'm going to root and rise. And my rise should be kind of right through where my ponytail top knot thing is here, not creating a reach through the chin, which I think so often happens. And the reason I like to just say, hey, root and reach, root and rise, is that a lot of us, if we try to think about being tall or being open, will actually lift or press the chest forward. And this actually will take us out of our equal and stable core, and it will create back pressure. So it's the opposite of what we want to do when we're trying to become tall and healthy. So I'm going to ask you to just tune in to that root and reach, root and rise, however you'd like to think of it, and notice what you experience. I'm feeling a lot of activity in my feet more than if I was just standing. I'm feeling some engagement in the thighs, glutes, and the entire circular core. So, not just those front abdominal muscles. I'm going to help with this strong and open pose by breathing. And if you want to take your hands right here to your ribs below the armpit, if you're able to do that, you could also make fists if that bothers your wrists. And I want you to kind of wiggle them up a moment, just sort of wiggle left and right, scoochy scooch, and see if you can get more length. And then hold there a moment while we cultivate deep breath. Deep breath is also one of the most critical pieces of our health, along with hydration, and absolutely key for creating a happy and fluid spine. So as you breathe, I'm going to invite you to see if you can, on your exhale, create what I call a compression breath. You're going to empty all of your stale breath. Empty, empty, empty. You might even be able to squeeze in with the hands, getting the ribs to come inward. And when you're sure there is nothing left, whisper, whisper. You can't whisper. Then inhale and try to press your hands open, like you're spreading gills of a fish, if you will. Flaring those ribs out. And then again, exhaling, emptying, emptying. Let's do this a few times. You can also, even though your hands are at the ribs, imagine emptying deeply from the low belly. We want to be able to train these low abdominal muscles between the hip bones to draw deeply in and back towards those low vertebrae, because this is a key part of what actually supports those. And many of us are kind of weak here. We've maybe got the muscles, but they don't fire up the way they should. And I'm hoping to get them to fire up a little bit more with what we're doing today. So let's do just another couple of full breaths in this way. Exhaling what I call compression, a deep and powerful emptying as much as you can. And then expansion, which is that wonderful breath that just flows in because you've created a vacuum. And then at the very upper end of the breath, when you think it's almost complete, expand it, sip in a little extra. You might feel it up into this chest or clavicle area. And if you want to move the hands there to witness that, please do. Exhaling and emptying compression, inhaling expansion. All the while rooting and rising, reaching, if you will, through the crown of the head. The chin is relaxed a little down and back. So it's almost creating as if you had a double chin. One more. Beautiful. And then now maintaining as much of that as you can, go ahead and create our jet airplane arms. And that's where I'm going to rotate the shoulder heads down and back, rotate the palms forward, but again, without reaching forward through the chest. So make sure to stay connected back through the rib cage. Keep rooting and reaching, resisting gravity. And as we continue here, we're going to come into 3 breaths with a very slow arm movement. And I'm going to ask you to ignite the glutes just a little bit so that you know that you're not arching through that tailbone. Inhaling, sweeping out slowly through the arms and up. Maybe they come all the way together and you let your shoulder heads rise. If that makes you feel tight and scrunched up in the neck, don't. Keep them in a V. Exhaling, turn the hands and sweep out and down. Inhaling out and up. And I like to ask of the breath, is there more? That keeps me present with the breath that I'm in and not rushing it. Beautiful. One more long inhale. And if it would feel good in your body, check it out. Big glute squeeze forward and a gentle lift of the chest up towards those hands. Beautiful. Exhaling, return to your neutral or natural spine and bring hands to prayer. So I tend to focus a lot on pelvic position, and some of us don't even necessarily know where it is at any given point during the day, and we've gotten in muscular habits. And if you sit a lot, this is one of the best things you can do is get up out of your chair or seated position. And I'm going to ask you to do a little hip pump with me, as I call it. So I'm sending my hips back of neutral and then forward of neutral with a nice glute squeeze. That's key here. Our back body becomes really tight, but it's usually tight in these stretched or elongated position. And we actually really want to retrain the glutes, the hamstrings to fire up in their shortened position and to support us. So you can make this movement bigger. A lot of times in class, if we're not worried about our back that day and we're just really wanting to work that range of motion, we might go into a bit of a squat with the butt further down and back and then forward. Notice that I'm keeping the back straight. I am not hunching forward. I'm not arching and tilting into a big arch like so. My back is flat like a tabletop. And we're going to utilize that in our next position. So as you're ready, you're going to stand in mountain pose first, and then we're going to take the palms forward and then bring the elbows as far back as we can without arching through the chest. So staying nice and core neutral. We're going to hold here for a few breaths. Again, nice rooting, pushing away from the earth. Notice where the breath touches you during this shape. And we'd love to be strong in all these muscles that we've talked about, but staying relaxed through the tongue and the eyebrows, maybe just the tip of the tongue at the roof of the mouth. All right, one more nice long inhale. And on the exhale, I'm going to ask you to hinge at the hips, bend the knees, hinge at the hips into that flat back that we talked about. And then extending forward with the hands, bringing the pinkies together as if you're presenting a platter in front of you. Again, if this bothers you for any reason, do it less intensively, right? So come up a little bit. Don't hinge as far forward. Cultivating breath deep into those same ribs where we were moving breath during compression and expansion. Make sure that your back of your neck is long. So you might be actually gazing into your hands, not out beyond them. We're going to do about 4 or 5 more breaths. And then as you're ready, on a deep inhale, root and rise. Bring those hands back into that starting position, elbows back. And release. Notice how that feels. Just scan the body a moment. Then we're going to come into what for me is a really important posture for decompressing the spine, and that's ragdoll. It's basically forward fold with the knees bent. Now you could grab a hold of a block if you wanted to for more support. You could make your way into ragdoll using a chair or something. Again, if you're feeling kind of tender, but you want to explore this pose. And so I'm going to, as an example, use my thighs. I'm keeping my spine straight and my head high. Notice I am not curling downward. This is going to keep you in the safest back position. The straight back, bending at the knees, head in alignment with the spine. And if I need to, I'm going to grab that block for support as well. Nice deep knee bend so that we're not intentionally trying to straighten the legs or activate a hamstring stretch. Although many of us, myself included, will get a hamstring stretch in this bent knee position. So you might continue to use the block for support. You might wrap opposite hand around opposite bicep, or you might enjoy that action of just hanging loose and the hands settling towards the floor. Please move your weight a little forward and back in the foot, a little side to side. And then start to cultivate that same compression and expansion breath, which is actually challenging here, of course. So we've got to be very thoughtful about it. On the inhale, you can always extend part way up. Your hands might be on a block, again, shin bones, or not even extend if you don't feel like it's a good thing in your back, but it'll give you more room for the inhale. On the exhale, begin with that low belly we were trying to connect to the low spine to compress out every bit of breath, empty, empty. Belly drawing towards spine, head hanging, or if you can't let it hang free, notice where the resistance is. Is it up in the neck? Is it further down in the spine? You might give a gentle yes and no movement with the head. We're going to be here for about 3 more breaths. Inhaling expansion, exhaling compression. Is there more? Letting gravity do its magic on us. 1 more. And after the exhale is complete, we're going to root and rise on the inhale. And this is really, really important, how we come in and out of folding. So how we come out of the fold is similar to how we entered. I actually want to bend the knees, drop the butt, and extend, kind of hinge the spine upward, all in one movement, like so. And then come up and return if you'd like to your mountain jet airplane. If you enjoy sweeping up and that feels good in your body today, great. All right, we're going to come into a standing version of cow-cat. We do cow-cat a lot in yoga, at least in my classes, and it's nice to know how to do a standing one in case, again, getting down and off the floor and all of that isn't really doable. I'm going to take my feet a little wider than mountains, so they're more like a little bit out beyond the sides of my hips. And I'm going to make sure that I've got a little bit of tailbone tuck so that low back is supported as I bend and place my hands on my knees. On my inhale, I'm going to tilt the tailbone back and reach the heart forward. This is what we call our cow pose. On the exhale, I'm going to tuck the tailbone and create cat back. Again, to your breath, asking, is there more? Staying soft through the eyes, the lips, the tongue. Just the tip of the tongue connecting at the roof of the mouth. It says, I'm awake. I'm here and present with my body. Let's do one more like that. I'm going to ask you to return to a flat and neutral spine before standing up. And you could even do a nice little standing hip pump glute squeeze after that. Then I want to check in with our upper spine, our neck. And of course, there's such a deep relationship. You can't do anything at the upper or lower end without it affecting the other. And in fact, having our head even a couple of degrees forward or down actually creates back pressure. So finding that neutral and liberated upper spine is really key. One of my favorite things to do, because I can't get a massage every day, is I create a little collar around the neck. So I'm just taking my hands, fingers kind of touching at the back. I'm not going to be gripping or pulling with them. They're just there to create a supportive neck collar. And with that in place, I'm going to gently drop the head side to side. And this is a great place to observe, how much holding is going on in the neck, how much stress. And if it feels okay to do so, then inviting you to make a circular motion with the head so that it's just traveling along the kind of rim of the hands that your fingers have made. And sometimes it feels really good to me to actually add a little active pressure. So while letting my left hand, for example, support the head, I might actively press up a little bit with the right hand. And sometimes my neck will adjust as a result, or I'll notice some new tight spot, and it can feel quite wonderful. Along with this, we want to release the jaw. I know a lot of people struggle with TMJ, which is basically just a condition of that area of the body. And a lot of times it's just caused by stress and tension. So let's see if we can liberate that jaw and occipital ridge. So as you're ready, if you want to have your hands on the base of the skull, you might be able to feel those muscles contract and release as we create lion stretch. So nobody's looking at you. I can't see you. Go for it. You can look at me. I'm going to be opening my jaw as wide as I can, as if you were screaming or yelling to the top of your lungs. Inhaling in between. You can add our lion claws. You might choose to stick out the tongue. And again, if you've got your hands at the back, I'm hoping you can feel this area right around the occipital ridge both contract and hopefully release, give you a little bit of a break. So swallow afterwards and so on. So another thing that we love to do is quadricep stretches, and sometimes we do them on our belly. But again, for a lot of people, that mobility onto the floor may not feel real great. And this may not be doable either, but let's see. For sure, I would recommend having a hold of a wall or a countertop or something, but have it right next to you or in front of you so that you're not reaching for it. And then squeezing the glutes before you do anything. Again, that nice engagement before you try and reach for one ankle. Now, if you can't get a hold of that ankle, one option is to take a strap, just a scarf, a belt, whatever. Sometimes it's nice to have someone help you, but you get that around so that you can hold that ankle. And you want the ankle as high as you comfortably can have it, you don't want it hanging down there. So you might need to help scooch up on the strap, etc. And then we want our knee to be in towards the standing leg. And as we can, move it back towards the standing leg. And most of us will get a good stretch there. Occasionally, people need to work a little harder at it. Again, glutes are still squeezing. If you're trying to work a little harder, think about reaching kind of up through your heart space, maybe adding your free hand if you don't need it for support and balance. Breathe. When we come out, please try to have control. Again, support, nice glutes, and let go. Good. Let's find the other side. Nice glute squeeze, supportive wall, working towards that ankle. And you're really letting your chest open, but you're not, again, arching forward. This is key. So we can notice, is this side different? What does it feel like as I try to bring my bent knee towards my standing, both in and back? What am I noticing? The breath is our change agent, so it's really important that we allow it to be slow, deep, and wide, telling the body that we're safe, that we're exploring at a healthy edge. Again, if you want that extra stretch through the front body, you might reach your free arm up. Nice glute support as you release and let it go. I'm going to be taking us into some lunges, and these are going to be what I would consider really short, small lunges. A lot of the time we're going into these big lunges, and that will often take us into a little pressure in the low spine, even if we're trying not to. So we're going to underdo. If you're particularly sensitive today, I would have a hold of a countertop if possible, or something stable, back of a couch or whatever while you're doing this. Otherwise, hands on hips. And we always want to keep our hip bones absolutely forward. So as you're ready, you're just going to step one foot back, kind of like you would in crescent lunge. I'm on the ball of my back foot. I'm going to anchor through the ball of the front foot. That's key for my balance and stability. And I'm just going to sort of lower that back knee and kind of straighten it. And if you're kind of like, I'm not feeling anything, you might take it back further if that doesn't bother your back. Some of you might be like, hey, I'm feeling pretty good today, and I'm just here to build some extra stability and strength and balance out front body tension with back body, in which case you might dip a little deeper. And if it feels appropriate, you might reach that matching arm up. So I've got my left leg back, left arm reaching up. You could do both. And let's return to our mountain. You can do that in multiple little steps if one big step is too much. Let's work with the other leg again, playing to find your distance, keeping that supportive low belly and a little bit of a pelvic tuck as you choose to come into your dip. If you want to lengthen the stance, another easy way to do it is to scooch with your front foot forward a little bit. Noticing, is this side different? Can I breathe while inviting stretch? Finding an edge, perhaps holding there. And some of us might even feel a stretch way down in the psoas muscle. So I've got my right leg back and I'm feeling that stretch therefore in the right psoas. And this is what we call our fight or flight muscles, actually. And it's this very deep muscle that attaches to the inside of the hip bones here, runs all the way through the body and connects at the back of the spine, like way up here, beyond the diaphragm. And so it's what allows us to contract, to fight, or to flee. And if these are too tight, it can really, really pull on the low back. So let's just do that stretch one more time and try to dial your attention in here to notice if this area feels overly tight, or particularly if one side is really tight and the other one is not as much. That could absolutely pull on your back in an awkward way. So taking one leg back, whichever you'd like. Find your appropriate stance. You can scooch that front foot, etc. Dip the knee and reach the matching arm to the leg up. Deep belly breath. So I'm actually kind of pushing breath into my belly, like I want to make a big Buddha belly. The best way I can say it. Nice loaf of bread. Come up, stabilize, and return. And let's compare the other side. What are you noticing? I'm hoping you can get that big Buddha belly, get that stretch, and come up, return. And I love ragdoll again to decompress. So a nice bend in the knees, remember straight spine, and then fold. Your belly might actually be on your thighs. That's a great place to hang out. All right, we're going to actually be coming on to our belly. So if you can, make your journey on down. We're going to be doing first a pose that I really like and feels really stabilizing to me. If it just feels intense, you may only want to hold it for like 3 breaths. Or if it hurts, obviously don't do it at all. But otherwise, we're going to be holding it for about 10 breaths. It's a little like Cobra, but a little different, all right? So we're going to start with our glute squeeze, again, because that protects that low back. I'm going to curl the feet under, which is a little bit different, right? I'm going to rest on the forehead. I'm going to bring the hands back until I feel that my shoulder heads have anchored. Elbows in, what I call no wings and no shrugs. And then I'm going to try and raise my hands off of the floor, taking the elbows high. Now you might just hang out here and breathe. This might be plenty. Otherwise, inhaling, extend forward through the spine until the face is a little off the floor. Remember, neutral neck. You're not trying to look forward. 3 breaths. I know it's a little challenging to breathe here because you're on your belly, but you can do it. You've got all those other places to expand, rib cage, back body. And then notice how you're feeling. If that feels like plenty, you might come out and stay in resting or return. Otherwise, another 6 or 7 breaths. Asking of the breath, is there more? Noticing what you're feeling in the back. Again, we're looking for feelings of strengthening, not tension. So if you start feeling any kind of like gripping or what have you, I would come out. Good. One more. And release. Settle the forehead, relax the legs, and relax the arms. And just very, very gently rock the hips. Rock, 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 rock. And this can be wonderful for just easing any gripping if there is some. Also good for mood. All right, and we're going to press back to child's pose. Now, not everyone's knees allow child's pose to be a great pose, in which case you've got to find your own way to, say, ragdoll, which is your great alternative. But otherwise, to get to child's, this is critical. We do this all the time during yoga. We want to do it well. And so here's what I'm going to ask you to do, is to return to that position we just did. Pelvis anchored, except I want your feet relaxed, not curled under. Hands slide back, no wings, no shrugs. Hands off, nice deep inhale, extend. Exhale, press the hands into the floor, push. And you'll see my hips came off the floor, but I've got a really good glute squeeze. There's nothing collapsed or hanging here. And then draw back through the hips and low belly. Take those knees wide and settle into your child's pose. This is a beautiful way to create stretch through the low back and really the whole pelvic girdle, the hips. The more that you can kind of press breath into that area with your attention and with your belly, the better. And we might stay here for a million years because it feels great. When you are ready to come up out of this pose, please do it by tucking the tailbone. Come on up to table. And we've got just a couple more things for you. Again, there's so many wonderful things we can do to support a healthy back, and I did some of those in that first yoga mini and in the tutorial, and these are just some additional pieces. So one of my favorites is to, first of all, make sure that you're kind of in a little bit of a pelvic tuck. You don't have to be in a full cat back, but you should feel a bit of work happening in the low abdomen and the low glutes. And I love this for checking where we are in core stability without possibly overdoing. I want you to just lift your right hand and left knee an inch off the floor, what I call a hovering. And I'd like to just stay here, breathe, stay soft in the neck, tongue, and so on. And you should just feel a ton of good work happening through the core, but not kind of compromising anything else like your neck or low back. Let's slowly release and feel all four limbs bearing our weight again. Nice inhale. Exhaling, hovering the left hand, right knee about an inch off the floor. And slowly return. Now, this might be plenty to just go back and forth and work right at this very safe, beautiful spot. I am going to offer extending it. So, when you're ready, you'll start with that same hover, but extend the limbs. Excuse me. We want to go very much straight forward and back. We don't want to lift either limb because that'll take us into an arch. I want you to still feel supported through that low belly and that the ribs are drawn up and in. Flexing through that back heel, very, very powerful. One more long inhale. Exhale, come back as slowly as you can, which again takes a really deep amount of control through the core body. Awesome. Inhaling, extend the other set of limbs. Again, nice long neck. I noticed I had kind of scrunched my back of my neck. You want to keep pressing through the crown. It's as if you're reading a love note right beneath you. And checking those potential places of collapse, seeing that they feel strong, reaching through that back heel. I see a lot of people never get straight through the leg, and that's unfortunate because that straightening of the leg is part of what will activate the hamstring and glute in ways that we want. And slowly back. Again, you could continue with that. There's going to be just one more little add-on, which is to extend and then hold and take the limbs just a little out to the side. So for example, I've got my right arm forward and if front is noon, I'm going to take my right arm out to maybe 1 o'clock. All right, I see people a lot do these really big movements. I don't need to do that, and it actually is counterproductive. Bring the limbs back to center and return to your table. Inhaling, extend your other set. Slowly out to the side. Notice if you compensate in some funky way. Try to stabilize. And come slowly, slowly on back. Good. And if you're feeling up for it, one final posture before we come onto our back for our last really important posture. I can't not include it, even though we've done it in every other healthy back thing. But here we go. Downward facing dog. So intelligent hands. I'm going to come into a cat back, and I want to use that low belly to send the hips up and back. And I included this pose on purpose, even though it doesn't seem really like it's a pose about the back, but because this is one of my favorite poses where we get to decompress our spine every time. So make sure you're not letting gravity take you. You are planting through those hands, especially the inner hand, and then you are sending with that front core, the belly, that low belly, the hips up and back. And then you might just wiggle them a little side to side to liberate the side body. You can let the head hang. And you can work the heels towards the floor. We don't care if they ever get there, but it's a great stretch all the way through the hamstrings and calves and Achilles tendon. All right, we're going to come onto our back for our final pose, bridge. And like I said, I have to include this because it's kind of the mother of all poses. And the version that we're going to do today is with a foot hover or leg extension. And this is one that a PT that I spoke to said, if I could get all human beings to do only one thing, it would be this. It's that important for kind of undoing all the repetitive shapes and things that we tend to do in our modern life. So I'm going to have you come on down to your back body, however you need to get there. Hands on hips. Work the shoulder heads a little beneath you before you go. Planting the feet, make sure they're no more than like 4 or 5 inches apart, or this is unnecessarily hard. Then you're going to slowly raise your hips. And obviously, if it begins to hurt, don't go that far. And then ever so slowly lift one foot off the floor. And again, just an inch. This isn't a big lift. Notice what happens. If the hip seems to drop, restabilize and then lift the other foot. Breathing, trying not to use your neck. I've got my hands on my hips because it's a really easy way to keep my attention to notice, am I dropping my hip? What's happening? If you want to go into leg extension, then you're flexing powerfully through the heel, holding for a full breath, working that standing leg to keep the hips stable, and returning. The thigh stays the same height as the other leg. Also, if you can, glance and just see if your toes are straight up. That's valuable. If you have a habit of turning to the outside with your foot in this position, you probably do when you're standing as well. And that may be part of what is going on in the low back. I talk about that a little bit in my back tutorial. When you're ready, come on down. Whew. Maybe knees to belly if you're up for that. It can feel so good. And from here, there might be other things that your body asks for. Otherwise, I'm going to invite you to just take a moment in some kind of resting posture. It might just be a classic corpse pose, although not everyone is going to be comfortable in that pose. So maybe you want to grab a bolster, a block, something cushy, and give yourself a few moments of rest. Another lovely position would be, if you're able to do it, to scooch over to a wall and send your legs up the wall. And that can really also help decompress the spine and also give our legs some freedom from whatever they've had going on throughout the day. I thank you so, so much for joining me. I hope this, if you've been in pain, I hope this helps relieve it a little bit. I hope it helps you notice some of what might be going on and what might help. If you're already feeling great in your body, I hope this gives you some ideas of ways to further stabilize your spine. I've been loving just feeling really confident as I'm carrying loads of firewood and other things instead of kind of being concerned that my back might kind of tweak out at any moment. Here's to your health. See you soon.